Athletic Greens, or AG1, is everywhere. All the big podcasters in the self-improvement niche are promoting it. I made a detailed video breaking down the ingredients of AG1, and relative to my channel size, it blew up. But the number one question that I had in the comments was, what is a good alternative? So that's what this video is going to address. If you're new around here, my name is Adam MacDonald. I am a Registered Performance Nutritionist with an MSc, a competitive natural bodybuilder, and a health and high performance coach. In this channel, we break down complex health and fitness topics into practical applications. So I've broken down the recommendations into two tiers. Tier 1, choosing other supplements to meet your needs, and Tier 2, figuring out ways to get more fruits and vegetables into your diet. Tier 1 will be the easiest to implement but likely to have the least benefit by itself, and Tier 2 being the hardest to implement with the greatest amount of benefit. Since we're comparing these to AG1, we quickly need to recap the previous video about what it is in case you haven't watched it. It's a pretty expensive greens powder based on proprietary blends and has a lot of unsubstantiated claims. That's the TLDR version. If you want more info, go to watch the detailed analysis link below this video. So Tier 1, you might be wondering, are all greens products just a waste of money? Well, it depends. You see, there are two types of people who are considering using greens products. Number one, the problem solver, the person whose overall diet isn't great. They know they should be eating better, but they either can't or just don't want to. Number two, the optimizer, somebody who has a great diet but is just looking for that edge. So for the problem solver, although evidence is very limited, there seems to be some marginal benefit to consuming fruits and vegetable powders if your diet is lacking in nutrients. It's important to note that the majority of the research in this field use a product called Juice Plus. I'm not advocating it, that's just what the science has used. You can see the ingredients list here on this research paper. This systematic review looking at the effects of fruits and vegetable concentrates on health found that subjects experienced higher blood concentration levels of vitamin C, E, folate, and carotenoids. The findings on oxidative stress and inflammatory markers were a little bit less conclusive, but homocysteine levels did seem to decrease, elevated levels of which are associated with increased risk of cardiovascular disease. That was likely linked to the prior deficiencies in folate. Long story short, nutrient deficiencies aren't good, and that's why they're called essential. So we can conclude that, at least from this research, some of the nutrients are getting into your blood and having some impact. Now, micronutrient deficiencies are extremely common even in developed countries, particularly those nutrients listed on the screen right now. And as I've mentioned before in previous videos, I think greens powders can be used as a multivitamin, and most people, including the majority of fitness enthusiasts, are unlikely to be able to describe what constitutes a balanced diet with regards to sufficient micronutrients. But the problem is, a lot of these greens powders are deficient or void in certain vitamins and minerals, probably because they're not made or intended to be multivitamins. Take it for example, AG1. It contains no vitamin D, no calcium, or no iron, all of which are very common deficiencies. And we do know that from population research that multivitamins are effective and prevent nutrient deficiencies. So if your intended use of a greens product is as a multivitamin, I would personally just buy a third-party tested multivitamin. Most greens powders don't contain much or any fiber. Fiber is technically not essential in the diet, but it has a whole host of benefits. These include lowering cholesterol levels, improved insulin sensitivity and metabolic health, reduced abdominal fat, reduced chronic inflammation, increased diversity of the gut microbiome, and improved appetite regulation, and many more. One meta-analysis even showed that for each 10 grams of fiber consumed, there was an 11% reduction in all-cause mortality. You want to try and get between 25 and 50 grams of fiber per day, but if you're eating very little or no fruits and vegetables, you'll be likely only getting a very small percentage of this, and greens powders won't cover that. So I personally would and do use a supplement that contains both soluble and insoluble fiber. Psyllium husk, which is a type of fiber, not a brand, is a good option here. So if you're somebody who's just looking to fill the gaps in a less than ideal diet, I personally think that most third-party tested daily multivitamins and a good fiber supplement will do a great job here. I'll talk about why third-party testing is important later on. What about the optimizers, the people who already have a well-balanced diet? Many greens powders on the market today contain not only a fruit and vegetable complex, but often adaptogens, digestive enzymes, and probiotics. And while this sounds good, digestive enzymes and probiotics are really only useful when specific strains are used in very specific cases, such as deficiencies in lactase enzyme or IBS. Randomly supplementing with a low dose of both is largely just a waste of money, and in The Science of Gut Health by Dr. Gabrielle Fundaro and Dr. Jess Hoffman, the authors state that digestive enzymes found in supplements such as greens powders will have little effect, if any, on the breakdown of these macronutrients, as they will be digested along with the rest of the dietary protein. Adaptogens can be useful in certain cases, but you want to make sure that it's an effective dosage. Imagine I ordered a coffee with milk and the barista put in 1 drop of milk from an eyedropper. It technically has milk in it. That's what many of these companies are doing with their proprietary blends. A much better option would be to go to examine.com, a third-party independent website, and search for the effective dose of an ingredient you want to use or the outcome you're trying to achieve. This does take a little bit more elbow grease, but if you're looking for specific results, then you can't really take general advice. Furthermore, in some of the research looking at fruits and vegetable powders, the scientists said that they should have extended the washout period before the study began to beyond 4 weeks, meaning that adding these products onto an already sufficient intake of fruits and vegetables isn't likely going to do much. But there's no actual direct research on that. If you're trying to mimic the claims of products like AG1, there are probably longer levers that you can pull, like go outside side of supplementation. However, if you still want to use a greens product, here are the 3-step procedures I would follow. Number 1. Check if the product is third-party tested. According to the FDA, they do not approve individual food labels before food products can be marketed. So essentially, as long as a company doesn't contain new dietary ingredients, the company can legally market it and sell the product without anybody actually verifying what's in it. A study from July of this year looking at the quality of certain supplements purchased online found that 40% of the supplements tested didn't even contain any of the specific ingredient listed on the label, and 12% contained banned substances. So at the very least, you want to make sure your product is safe for consumption. Third-party testing will nearly always be stamped on the product or on the product webpage, but you can check websites such as NSF or labdoor.com. When looking at 3 popular greens products on the market, I could only find third-party testing for 2 of them. Step 2. Does this contain a proprietary blend? We already mentioned the problems with a proprietary blend, and at least when a company is transparent, you can check whether they have an effective dose of a specific ingredient that you want. And step 3, finally, the cost. It's impossible to directly compare 2 greens powders because it's a very vague term and companies just seem to be throwing in random amounts of random ingredients, and in addition we've learned there's very limited research on greens products. Most companies' claims are not based on science, so it would be hard to believe that one company could realistically charge 3 times the price of another company, and likely you're just lining their pockets. So as long as the product is third-party tested, and since most greens either have a proprietary blend or have very little ingredient in it when they are more transparent, it really comes down to price and taste at this point. But personally, based on everything I've just said, I don't use greens products. So level 2, adding more fruit and vegetables into your diet. Now most people that consume greens powders know that more fruits and vegetables are good for you. Vitamins and minerals are necessary to make a diet healthy, but they're not sufficient, and there are many properties in whole plants that can enhance your overall health and well-being. They're a life hack, but it's often difficult to eat more. And as famous French writer Voltaire wrote, "Don't let perfect be the enemy of good." He probably said that in French. And depending on the region of the world that you live in, daily recommendations vary slightly, but there seems to be significant benefits across the board for consuming as little as 200 grams per day. That's the equivalent of 1 large apple. Those benefits seem to increase all the way up to 800 grams or 10 servings. You might even get benefits beyond that. At this point, we just don't have the data. Start eating more of the fruit that you already like. Opt for less perishable items like bananas, apples, oranges, and pears. Add frozen fruits, which can be just as nutritious to your oatmeal and your yogurt. Add spinach, rocket, and lettuce to your sandwiches and wraps. Eat more 100% dried or dehydrated fruits. Buy a blender and make homemade smoothies and soups. Even consider occasional use of 100% fruit juice, which maintains some of the benefits of fruit. Instead of thinking how you could completely overhaul your diet, ask yourself, what small frictionless changes can I make and build on over time? Change is a lot more difficult than most people think, and it requires more than just information. If you found this video helpful in any way, I would really appreciate a subscribe, and if you want details on coaching, you'll find that under this video.